In this video I'm going to be making a lower flat plane splint using the articulator. So the first thing we're going to do in the articulator, name them upper and lower, and then we're going to bring in our mounting plate, shift it to the midline, look at it from the bottom, moving it to the stopper. So here we've got these ovals, and they're there to help you get the symmetry correct. Make a visual calculation. We don't want the model to be rotated too much. A good symmetry going. So from the side we can see that perfectly, and then we're going to delete the mounting table. And then we're going to import the automatic condyles, which means these are the models are already animated, but we need to edit those. So what I'm going to do is we're going to set a new location for the lower. Now, if you guys don't know how far the distance is between the top and the lower, we can look at the heat map and we can use the slider, and we can see there's 0.9 millimeters. So if I had to make a measurement, that is pretty thin. So generally speaking, I'm going to exit this. Generally speaking, 2.5 degrees should be sufficient for material. Then we're going to set that, and then we're going to apply this for a new location for the lower, which deletes all of the animation and it's set it in stone. So we're going to reset this. This time we're not opening it up. Apply a keyframe. I've over exaggerated the jaw movements because we want the top model to cut out the entire flat plane. So then we're going to apply this, and we're going to do the lower as well. Set the Bennett side shift -1, and then move the jaw to the side, a little bit over exaggerated, and apply that. And we're going to do the same for the other side as well. So following that, we've got the animation, the jaw movements, it's all looking good. We can continue now with the blocked out module. Here I've opened up our timeline so we can move the playhead, and I've set it into the protrusive. So we're going to name that upper, and we're going to name the other one lower. And we're going to create an offset, mine being 0.2. If you're milling, it will be way less depending on your precision of your printer. And then we're going to apply this new model, which has been bigger than the original version. Let us look at the path of insertion. We do not have many undercuts in this specific case. So we're going to mark these undercuts, and then we can move the scene when it says you can move the scene on the toolbar. We can see a little bit of undercut, but not much. So we're going to create our passive model and apply that. And we can see there's hardly any undercuts in the model. So if I move that slider, we can block out a little bit, but in this case we will keep this at the absolute minimum. So maybe a little bit over there on the distal of the lateral, so that the splint can actually move over and across it. And apply this. And then we're going to create a retentive model. So just read your tooltips. They appear there for 200 seconds, which gives you ample time to follow these tips. And we're going to apply that. This makes a new model, a retentive model. In the splint module, we call that a target model. We can delete the passive model and the offset model. We don't need those. Now when designing the lower, we need to link this target model to the animation. So select it and link it to the animation. That's the first step we do. So we're going to then draw a line across. Now we're relying a bit on surface area to get retention. In the past, when we used acrylic in the laboratory, and the client would ask us to only do it halfway, then we would get them coming back, and we would have to put a clasp in there to retain it in the mouth. Now with 3D printing, it's no good putting it up halfway on the tooth, because we need to engage undercut, else the patient's going to come back with a loose splint in the mouth. So we'd like to avoid that at all costs, and therefore we need to plan how this thing is going to clip into the mouth. So we're going to extrude, going to fast forward this. And then trim it, select the mesh that you want to keep and clean. Then we're going to accept this layer. And check that it's moving with your animation. And apply it. Now this is 4 millimeters thick, 2 on the inside and 2 on the outside. We're going to apply that and give it a quick sculpt, just to make sure the borders are nice and neat. Exit that, and then this completes our layer, and it's moving with the animation. If it's not moving with the animation, you're trying to cut it with the articulator, it will end up in disaster. So it needs to move. Let's make the rim, E to extrude, and I'll fast forward this as well. Here we've clicked on make the rim, and which extrudes in the Z direction downwards. This is usually because we're making an upper splint, so by default it moves downwards. So just pull it up, and then I'm going to view it from the right side and R to rotate it and position the top of this rim correctly. Something like this should do it. Notice my playhead is on number 2 at the moment. And we unify this to the layer and then give it a quick smooth. And exit. It'll remesh it. I'll set it to a bit finer, 0.3. And this concludes my initial splint. Now we have 2 options. So here in the articulator, I'm going to name the top model as the object making the cut, apply the offset, and the lower one is the object being cut. And then you can see we've got all of the cuts performed. We will smooth the layer, right click, I'll set that to 0.1 because I don't want to destroy our nice neat cuts. And then 0.3 to do the edges. And then based on that, exit, it remeshes, and we're going to cut the fitting surface. Now make sure that the splint is called layer. This has been changed in the articulator. And cut fitting surface. And that completes the first option. The second option, I'm going to make an occlusal plane cutter. So select the top model, because this is going to be for our plane, and we're going to then place the cursor and then draw the plane, a line, going on the most buccal cusps of the model. And then make occlusal plane cutter, and then we're going to select these vertices and then snap them using the G key onto the most top of the cusp, the highest point of the cusp. So when that's done, we're going to make our cutting tool. Note that we don't have to have it linked because it's the top model. Now this cutting tool will then become our plane cutter. So then cut the layer and then delete the top of it. Then smooth the edges down. And then it will remesh it. We're going to finish this layer and then make the fitting surface. And that concludes it.